Okay, we have picture. Do we have sound? Hello, hello. Just getting set up just a couple minutes early. Misha says hi, Sue. Hello, hello. This is gonna be fun today. Um, Cindy King. Hi, Cindy King. Good afternoon, OML gang. Working and listening. Awesome. Susan Williams. Gotta go feed the cats. That's okay. Misha says, I hear you. All right, new program. I locked everything so we won't have any problems. Rose says, sounds good. Isabel, hi, Sue. Hi, Isabel. Thank you so much for your postcard you sent me from your vacation. That was awesome. It came yesterday, and I thought that was literally the coolest thing. So thank you so much. Ronag did the Under the Sea. I don't know if you guys saw that with the cute crabbies that I created. And I love her colors and I love how it turned out. It is posted in the OML Embroidery University Facebook group. Go check it out. It's really stunning. So good job, Ronag. I love it. Absolutely love it. So let's see. What time is it? Getting there. Another minute. Okay, I can yab around for another minute. Small. We're talking small. Pixie. Woo! Made it again. How is everyone today? I think everyone's warm. We apparently here in Ontario, Canada, have a tornado warning, and it just looks like it's starting to. The storm is upon us. So, if I cut out, that means the power went out. And don't worry about it. I'll continue tomorrow. We're going to hope that. They say it all the time. It's never happened. So Rose says, it's hot. Hello, Christine. Hello, hello. All right, 4 o'clock. I feel that one. Oh, no, be safe. Yeah, they say it all the time, but I have yet, knock wood, I have yet to see a tornado. So they just put out the warnings, I guess. I don't know if I'd know what to do, but we've had some 100 plus temperatures and it rains every day. Temp was over 105. Ooh, that's hot. I haven't gone outside in a couple days because it's so stinking hot. I just stay here. And work, I have some wonderful clamshells to show you guys. One of them, the pickle clamshell, is going to be released on Friday. Dawn did a couple of Mylars, so look for those on Friday. All right, let's get started. So today we are talking about small lettering and why and how it's so difficult to do and what you can do about it. So let's get started on that. These are small fonts that are in the Perfect Embroidery Professional, which is the software by Dime, which I quite enjoy. There's so many little things in it. I just love it. So unfortunately, there are some rules with small fonts to make them look the best they can. So simple fonts look best. So something simple like an Arial, just keep it, basic. If you have, swirls and ligatures and swashes, it's going to make it really difficult to read. So plain and simple, nothing fancy. And we are going to go over this in the next screen, talk about why. So limited or no underlay. You can't really see it here, but let me take the 3D off. And I put underlay on the word underlay, and there's a lot of stitches in there. There's a lot going on compared to just center line. So no underlay, and that's opposite of what we normally say, but the underlay is just going to make it bulkier, and it won't look as nice when you go really small. So another really important one is know the recommended sizes. So what do I mean about that? Each font that is digitized for embroidery, so I'm talking a built-in font, has recommended sizes, the big and the small. So you have to pay attention to that. If you go below their recommended size, it's probably not going to look good. So make sure you know. Now in Perfect Embroidery Pro, when you go here to pick a lettering, if you hover here, can you see that? It says recommended height range. It's just a little bit off to the side, but yeah, you can catch most of it. 0.16 to 0.31. So it is meant to be small. So knowing that will help you, come up with better small fonts. If you don't have it on screen like this, I absolutely love this because it's something I look up all the time. Your manual will have it. And just look it up and see what the recommended size goes to. And you can turn it to millimeters if you want, but you just don't want to go smaller than what they recommend or you're going to end up having trouble. So it's really important. That is really important. It is in your manual, or if you're using this software, it's right here, which is super handy. Make sure you know if it goes as small as you want. So there we go. Know the background. So what I mean about that is, are you trying to do small lettering on twill, on cotton, or silky, stretchy fabric, or you're layering it? There's a lot of things to know. So once you know the background, you know if it's going to work. Make sure you stabilize properly in the whole bit. Don't use pull compensation. So here on the word pull, I added pull conversation. I added pull compensation, and you can see that it's made all the letters kind of squishy. Now, I mean, it looks kind of groovy there. Like if I guess people call it bold, making it bold. But if you're pulling away and looking at it, you could see these letters clearly, but you can't particularly. It looks like puff. So you don't really want to do that. So take off any pull compensation, which brings us to there's going to be no underlay and know the background. So we are going to have to get our foundation another way. And the best way probably is to put fill stitches underneath. The fill stitches will act as underlay, but you don't have to add it, so the lettering will stay the way it is. So that's my tips. The best thing to do though is right here at the end, use a font digitized for small. And one of the things that I like about Perfect Embroidery Pro is that it has a whole bunch of them and they are awesome. So this is a digitized small one, and it's 50% or so smaller than, whoops, I didn't mean to move that Y. Why did my Y move? Come on, back. Thank you. But it looks really good. I really like it. Come on. It doesn't want to move. But you can see each letter. You can see how good each letter looks. The O's have a center in it. The A's do too. It's wonderful. So that is a font that is digitized for small lettering. So it kind of works. That's the easy way out. You still have to go to recommended sizes. This one goes to 0.16. And if you want to know what it is in millimeters, just let me know. I just have it on imperial, like inches and stuff, because I figured that would make more sense to people as we go through this. So yeah, no pull compensation. You can't compensate for anything when you're doing small lettering. So let's play around. So these are really small letters, and these are just regular fonts. You can tell that by the red F here, and it's called Blippo, and it is really small. Okay, and I've made all these letters the same height. Doesn't matter about the width, because each one is going to be different, but the height is right here. So that's that 0.16 I was talking about. And just for reference, this is a 1 by 1 inch square. So it helps put it into perspective. Um, is that better in Embrilliance? Embrilliance does really good lettering as well, so it's awesome. So remember how small this is, and you can't lose track of it. So these ones here in green are the lettering that is set out aside for small. And this lettering right here, Blippo, is not recommended to go quite that small. It's almost close. It's 0.20. So I've made it a little bit smaller, and if we step back, let's see, can we put it 1 to 1? No, probably not. So what I look for is how readable it is. And I'm zooming in quite a bit, and these ones don't look too bad at all. I think these S's are a little bit difficult. This one, let's look at the small letters one, and when you look really close up at it, that's not going to show up very well. Look at it like this. It's not going to show up any, like, very well at all. It's terrible. And I don't think it would look very good. Now, I see kind of problems with this groovy font, so I didn't pick, super plain ones. But this E didn't quite form properly. And the R as well. And that's what happens when you try to go too small. Things are kind of messed up. And these ones have the underlay on it. And the E here is also messed up, but there's not much space between. So, I mean, let's look closely at the small lettering, same closeness, that are designed for it. I think these look way better. This is even. The E is formed. There's a nice space in between. And I think everything looks good. And these are pre-programmed in. Michelle says, are you no longer doing Embird tutorials? I do some, but what I'm trying to encourage people to do is take what I'm teaching you in the class and apply it to your software. Every embroidery digitizing software has lettering, so you don't have to be an Embird to understand this sort of thing. So all the classes that I have on my channel, you can bring into Embird, and I encourage everyone to do that. Whatever software that you're using, like I said, you can find lettering. I keep everything basic, so if you know how to do a fill stitch and some lettering and stuff like that, find it in your software, you'll remember it. Not every software has a small lettering. You can purchase them, but I'm just using this because it has it built in. So looking like this, and remember this is only an inch, so that's pretty small writing. I think these ones look really good. That one isn't too bad, but the S is kind of way out there, so I don't like it. But that's the difference in it. So it is best to do it this way. Some of these built-in fonts, what is this one at? See, this one is supposed to be, that's interesting. This one is supposed to be quite a bit bigger. The only thing is that I see on this one that I wouldn't like is this looks pretty thick through here. And again, the E isn't set properly at all. I really don't like it. So how do you figure out straight up if a font, other than the ones that are designed for it, are going to look good? Well, it's all in the O's and E's. And if you know Rick and Marty, I'll say, ooh-wee, ooh-wee. So let me show you. I've got my 1 inch square there. And what you're looking for, and this will sound kind of weird, but you're looking for the spaces in the O's and the E's. And what I mean about that is, I mean, obviously the bigger letters, this is the default or recommended large size, which looks good. And the recommended large size is just before it splits. I personally don't really care for split satin, but I think if it's going to split, you switch to fill stitch. But anyways, this is the default for each, and it's a regular Arial font in the largest and the smallest that it's recommended. So this is Arial, this is Arial. Now I played around, but the first one in green is the built-in font, the built-in Arial font, compared to the other one, the regular Arial. So when we zoom in, you can see that this one here looks amazing, and it really works. This is regular font, but the way it, see, the O is kind of a rectangle in the middle, that makes it look better. So when you know, stand back to see, because the lettering is quite small, which one can you see better? I can, right here, I can see this one better. So the O's and the E's, just think, ooh-wee, everyone's going to be saying that now. And the E's, you have to watch the E's too, because if you go too small, look what is going to fill in. Now these ones are pretty good, and you can see that it is an E, right? This one, does that look like an E to you? No. It's just a different font. I think you use the same one. Yeah, it's called Audrey. And this is a problem. Even in the bigger one here, you can see it looks groovy when it's larger, but not so much at the small, and really not much. So this is 0.24, which is bigger than the smallest recommended one. And this one is a 0.16. So, you know, I wouldn't really use that one. Now, this is small lettering, the same size it should be. Yeah, it is. And when we zoom back at it, it becomes hard to read because you can't really see the E's and the A's. So it fills in. So it goes along with what we were talking about last week, making designs bigger and smaller. You have to have some space between the satin stitches so you can read it. And that's what I look for, is the O's and the E's. If they're clear, then you should be able to do it. But see, these are nice and clear to me. I can see that's an E, and I know I'm zoomed in, but even here you won't be able to see when it stitches, because remember, this isn't stitched. So, you know, we have to play with physics when we get stitching. When you're in the software, you can kind of bypass a lot of the physics, which is nice. But what you see on your screen is not going to be what you're stitching out. It can only go as small as the width of your thread. And for example, this has 1,218 stitches. So that's a lot of stitches. I'm thinking this one would be dense. I'm thinking it would fill in a little bit more and not look good. This one has 929, and they are the same size, but one is digitized for another. Now you might say 300 or 400 stitches isn't going to make a difference, but when you're working at something that's this size, not even 1.5 inches long, that 400 stitches is going to make a big difference. So is everyone with me so far of how you can pick the best? If you have any questions, just ask away. Nobody's really too chatty in the chat. So let's look at some lettering. So in the second one I did, I said simple fonts look best. So we're gonna, Isabel says, yes, yes. Simple fonts. So these are some fonts that I brought down to the same size. So this is a brush font, which is, a script font. This is a fancy one. So I just took them and I made them smaller. So let's see what we can see zooming right in here. Now, the problem with fancy stuff, now you can see right here that, hi Carolyn, by the way, you could see right here that this is just going to look like a different letter because you are not going to be able to see in between here to know it's an E. The A will probably fill in too, and the M is just going to look like nothing. So this one is a little better. It's the same size and everything, but there's lots of jumps and it doesn't quite fit in. It's better out of the ones. If you made it a little bit better, it would be even better. So then this one is Curly Angelic Curls. What a cute font this is. But yeah, can you see that that's not going to look good? So all of the extra stuff in it, like the swirls, aren't going to be formed. Yes, you can see in between the E, but this R is going to look different, and the A, and this is going to overlap. And remember, it's going to be thicker than you think. So I think this one's going to be a lot more difficult to read. So let's try another couple ones. See, they look kind of blurry. This one looks awful. It would just stitch out in kind of like a blob, and you really want to be able to read it. Now, this one doesn't look too bad, but the problem is there's 1,700 stitches in it, and that would make it really dense. There's a lot of stitch points in it. Really dense, and I don't think you would be able to see it very well. So all the dots here are stitch penetrations, and look at this one. There's so many, it just looks like black. So that's another way you can tell, just a quick look-see. There's a lot of stitches in this one. I don't think that one would be great. Let's see how many stitches are in this one. This one only has 859, and it's still the same size. Yes, it is. Just double checking. It doesn't form the letters. Like, this is an A, and it doesn't look like an A to me. You're never going to look at it this close, but because you're digitizing, you can. So the L's are kind of funny. I can't tell that this is an A and this is an S. So this is kind of a mess too. And even if we look back, to regular size, you might be able to guess, but no. I don't think this one is good at all. And so it's a script with extra swirlies. I'm going to put a capital on this, a capital S, just to see, because it looks very swirly. Well, the S looks great. You'd have to fix the spacing right there. But when you zoom in, it's not even big enough to make a zigzag like for a satin. It's just basically going over it. So it would not look good. It's just going to look like, 3 layers of lines on top. So no, not for that one. Not really. And this one too, we have some issues between the letters. These look like they're cut off, and the T's are not cool. It's actually really hard to tell what they are. Look at the difference between these ones, which are good, and these ones, which are worse. And the A is wide open. I don't think that one's gonna look good. That's New Wave. So not all fonts are going to look good when you make them smaller. So you have to kind of be careful. Stick with the recommended size and know what you can do, what size you could do if you wanted to bend the rules a little bit. That will look good. And really, with lettering, you really want to be able to actually read it. I find that's really important. But there are fonts out there that can go almost as small. So stick with the recommended size. If you need to go smaller, then use a font that's digitized for it. So standing back like this, I can read this one perfectly. I can read this one perfectly. This one is pretty good, except for this E could be anything. But look at these ones now. You can't read that. This one isn't too bad, but it looks like a K to me. This one you can't read. And the swirly added stuff, no, I don't like it. So, make it readable for sure. So our last thing, a lot of people say, well, just use running stitches. But it's really small with running stitches, and it's really hard to read like this. It really honestly doesn't always look great. Now, there's a couple things you can do to make it look better. Now, this is an aerial center run, and it's not designed to go this small. This actually, excuse me, need a drink here. It is designed to go this small, but I don't think it looks very good at all. I don't think it looks very good at all. And this one actually doesn't look too bad. I made it quite a bit bigger. This is the smallest that it's supposed to go. And I really like it. I think that's okay. You can read it. It looks like an outline, that sort of thing. But if you're looking at these ones, look what happens when we make it the size that we want. It changes everything. It's hard to see that it's an E. It looks like a square. This is all squared off. I don't think that would look good on anything. Now let's, what a disaster here with the outline one. Look at this. Is that an A? What is that? I don't know. And the E's, the ones that we're looking at, remember ooey, and the S, it gets all squared off, which is what we saw happen last week with making a circle design smaller. It goes square. These are already small stitches, by the way. I did make them a bit smaller. The stitch length. Do you remember we talked about that? And it is also a bean stitch. I didn't notice that before. We don't need a bean stitch. That just makes it more complicated. Yeah, it's bean stitch. It would look good though. So I'm just going to move it to standard and see what a difference that makes. This is still too small. It doesn't look good. This is the recommended size and you can see the difference. But what I did with this one is that I made the stitch length to 1. So what does that mean, the stitch length? So the stitch length is the space in between each needle penetration. And if you look here, we're going to zoom in. It may be hard for you guys to see, but each of these little points here, that is a stitch point. And yeah, there's a lot of them for sure. There's a lot of them. And there's a lot more. So these stitches are 1 itty bitty millimeter. The rest of them are 2. But you can see that there's extra ones as well. But see, this one is, I think it's 2 as well. Let me check. Yeah, it's 2. So smaller stitches, let's see, 361, and this one is 291. This one does look better, but I'm really not sure how that's going to stitch out. It'll definitely look, these two lines will be closer together, so it might be a little more solid. Hi, Chris Yost. Hello. Nobody's too talkative today. Nobody at all. So I'm going to take those off because it's kind of distracting. Now, what we were talking about is underlay. Now, we're getting really small here. So this is less than 1.5 inches. So this is in inches. So 1.5 inches with lettering on it. And this is what I was talking about. Don't add underlay to your letters because it just makes more stitch penetrations and it won't make it look nicer, that's for sure. So no underlay. So let's zoom right in and look at this. So this one isn't too bad. I think you'd have a little bit of a difficult time reading it from far away. So that is Arial, and it's just a little bit under the recommended size for it. So let's 0.20. This is the recommended size. You can see the difference. Now what you'd have to do is adjust your design. But the fill stitch is underlay stitching around the word. There's no underlay on it. These are just running stitches or bean stitches. The underlay is right here, the fill stitches, and that gives you a nice base for it, and you'll get a better look if you are going to use the lettering like this. The best thing, this is a built-in font that is small and designed for small. So there's a big difference between readability between this one and this one. And I think this looks fantastic. And because the fill stitch behind it is kind of acting as the underlay, it's going to look really good. And it's balanced between, you know, the amount of needle points and making the lettering look readable. So if we go move back, I can still read this one. This one, it kind of blows together into a blur sort of thing. So I think this one looks better. However, you may be able to get away with this one. Who knows? You'd have to try and do some experiments. Now, when you're digitizing and you're doing something as particular as this, so say I wanted to stitch this out on a design, it's part of a design, I would take this part and test stitch it and see what you think and try some different fonts. I mean, this is only like 1.5 inches, so it's really not going to take you very long to you know, be able to stitch it out and set it down and see if you can read it. So not all small lettering needs to be read. That's another thing. We've done lots of patches where they want it on there. We tell them, look, you won't be able to read it this small. They are, you know, it's too small, you won't be able to read it. And they say, that's fine, we just want it on there. So you could do something like this, but I would test stitch this out and you can find out what works and what doesn't work. So there's a lot of ways you could figure it out. Like I said, you might want to stitch this out on something, and because I made it a smaller stitch length, that's a good trick. You just have to be careful that you're not putting too many stitches in a very small spot. That would be called density. So also it counts as density if it goes one way and then back. that one spot, even if it's running stitches, that's going to have a lot of stitches in it. So be careful when you're changing the stitch length. Hopefully your software will come up with it. So it's kind of fun. Small lettering is probably more difficult than small embroidery designs, I think, because it's the readability that counts. So simple fonts look best, limited or no underlay, but you gotta know what you're stitching it on and see if it's going to work. Know the recommended sizes. It's really important. You guys saw the difference between what I wanted, a small one, and I made it bigger, how different it looked. And it did look really good. No pull compensation, so double check to make sure there isn't any. It is just not going to work for small stitching. And use a font that's already digitized for small, if at all possible, because they're set up to work the best. So these are good tricks, things to know what's going to work and what. Be patient is the other thing, because it's really hard to do, to pull off small, like we're talking seriously small here. It's I mean, the piece here is 1.5 inches by 1/2 inch. So draw that out and write small letters on it. It's smaller than you think. It's actually really small. So I think what I've got here, recommended sizes and a small font, I think these would look pretty good. I think it would look pretty good. Definitely this one would stand up much better, and I think you'd be able to read it better. So a couple of things that you can try. Running stitches are not necessarily better. Things to look for: ooey. Everyone think of ooey. Check your O's and E's and see how they look, and size the font that you want, and step back and see which ones you can read the best. And my answers are the plain ones up here. The green is digitized for embroidery at this size. So that's the best way of doing it. And be patient, and remember, it's one of the hardest things to do in embroidery. So if you can remember those things, you can end up with some really small lettering. And when you do it properly, it looks great. Don, of course, is the master of small lettering. He digitizes it himself, so he doesn't use any fonts. So it always looks fantastic. That's his thing. Not necessarily mine. I'm happy for the digitized. Like the O and E check. Yes, it's ooey. Ooey. That's how you guys are going to remember it, and check to see how much space is in between what you want it to be and the smallest recommended size, and check your O's and E's and sometimes A's. That's how we're going to do it. So that's it for today. Do you guys have any questions at all on small lettering? Again, it's hard to do. If you look at some of the designs from Eileen Roche, she uses her own software, obviously. Like the ice cream and the cupcake one that we did, there's small writing on it, and it looks fantastic. I don't know if you guys were surprised. I was, because it's teeny tiny writing. Well, she used the built-in fonts. So next week, we're going to talk about small applique. Should you do it, or should you just add stitches? So what's better? And it's gonna, fit in with all the stuff that we're doing, small stuff. And you can find out what I think, anyways, how small you should go for that. So, ooey, remember that, ooey. And check your font. Sometimes you can bend the rules, test stitch it out, and you will have some gorgeous small stitching. So Friday, we're going to have some new releases. Saturday is going to be the Dime So Long, so don't forget to watch with me on Thursday. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye everyone!